This is the Dark Illumination Report podcast for Friday, August 28th, 2020. And on today's episode, I'm going to be answering a question from a listener who asked me, how would I go about consecrating a tarot deck?
This is the Dark Illumination Report podcast, the official podcast of Shadow Path Diabolism, your daily dose of Diabolonian philosophy to inspire you on your journey down the crooked shadow path. Here's your host, R.J. Womack, Brother Nero.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining me for another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, R.J. Womack, aka Brother Nero, your friendly neighborhood diabolist. And this is, of course, the Dark Illumination Report podcast, the podcast where we try to help our fellow diabolists along their journey down the crooked shadow path. And on today's episode, I'm going to be answering a question from a listener who asked me, how would I go about consecrating a tarot deck? The first thing I would do is I would open my ritual the way I customarily do. I would invoke Lucifer and Satan, and I would start with Lucifer because you're looking for enlightenment and insight. So I would start with Lucifer, and I would trace the Elhaz rune after passing the tarot deck through the mugwort incense, and I would pass it through at least 3 times, and then I would trace the Elhaz rune while visualizing it in red over the tarot deck in the front and the back as you're holding it up, passing it through the mugwort incense or some kind of lunar incense if you don't have mugwort, if you want to use something with lunar correspondence. And then I would pass it through, I would call on Satan and I would pass it through the incense again. I would trace the Elhaz rune again. And then thirdly, I would call upon whatever dark goddess you believe in, whether it's Lilith or whether it's Hecate or whatever dark goddess you believe in, which is whoever the witch mother is to you or the witch goddess. And I would trace the Logos rune over the top of the tarot deck, front and back of the deck, and pass it through the mugwort incense. And then lastly, I would trace the Othello rune over the top of the tarot deck, front and back, while invoking the honored dead, the spirit of the witches and the spirit of the demons, both named and nameless, and ask them to endow it with their presence and to give you insight when you use the tarot deck. That's what I would personally do. And then I would close the ritual as I traditionally would, if I was doing any other ritual. That's the basics of what I would do if I was doing my own deck. So I hope that helps. That'll be it for today. Take care, guys. May Satan be with you, and hope to see you next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.
If you would like to learn more about the Shadow Path Diabolism tradition of occultism, go to rjwomack.com. That's rjwomack.com. If you enjoyed this podcast and support our message, tell a friend, leave us a review, and follow us on social media.